What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball, and more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series. This is a series where I'm breaking down all 30 NBA teams before the start of the regular season, and now it's kind of the dead point in the basketball calendar. Not too many people are looking into basketball. They're into football or just other sports right now, but if you're a basketball sicko like me, you're trying to get ready for the season. The preseason's really not that far away. You want to see what's going on with your favorite team, your opponents, and just get yourself prepared, and that's what we're here to help you with today. In this video, we're going to dive into the Los Angeles Clippers and get you ready for everything you need to know about them going into this season. We're going to start off with a recap of what they looked like last year, set some goals, talk about their offseason. It was a great one for them. Well, potentially. We'll do a complete roster breakdown where we take a look at like player salaries, team salary, cap space, Java updates. Please go the hell away. We'll talk about draft picks. We'll go through some mock trades, rotational ideas, lineups, and finish with the standings prediction at the very end of the video. But before we get into all of that, make sure that you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment to my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. There's plenty of other season preview videos for you guys to watch, even a bunch more that you don't see on the screen right now because I pre-record these and I try to stay ahead of the game a little bit. But seriously, I know it's not the biggest time for basketball in the year, but show these videos some love because I'd love to keep doing them every single year. But with all that being said, let's talk about the Clippers. And that brings us back here to the season preview spreadsheet. For those of you unfamiliar, I like to kind of build these spreadsheets to help articulate and kind of visualize the stories that I'm telling here on YouTube. And you can actually get access to these spreadsheets if you want. All you have to do is go down into the description of this video. You'll see a link to join my Discord. It's completely free. Go hop onto there. And then if you go over to the announcements channel, there is a download link there. I'm updating this spreadsheet every single day. Try to make it the most accurate that I possibly can. So just come and get more updated versions when you need it. But okay, that's enough marketing and all that whatnot. Let's talk about the Clippers. We always start on the intro tab. It's a good place for us to talk about what the season looked like last year and then set some goals going forward. So the Clippers, kind of a tale of two halves last year, right? Obviously, very talented roster. We got the new stadium and everything rocking. It's great stuff, right? You just lost Paul George to free agency, which kind of sucks, but this team has made it very clear that they don't have an interest in anything but trying to win championships, which I'd rather you be that than the opposite, right? I'd rather this team just always try to win, and that's what they're doing. They're kind of all in at all times. You didn't have Kawhi for most of this season, so you're like, all right, how much can James Harden really do for us with this group? And surprisingly, we got results from players not named James Harden. And don't get me wrong, the Clippers did a really good job of kind of finding a bunch of really good, like, veteran bench players to kind of help round out the team, whether that be like Nick Batum, Derek Jones Jr., Chris Dunn, right? Guys like that. But all of a sudden, Norman Powell starts playing like an all-star level player. He's one of the most efficient players in basketball, really kind of being that scoring punch you need. Ivica Zubac has an enormous leap in his game, and all of a sudden he's one of the most probably underrated players in basketball. Statistically, he was one of the best players in basketball last season. It was his rebounding, his defense, his effectiveness around the rim, just everything he was doing for the Clippers was phenomenal. And so now all of a sudden you got this pretty solid team. Kawhi Leonard comes back and he starts to hoop a little bit, noticeably a little bit slower than what he was. He's coming off of injuries and stuff. It's understandable, but the Clippers were like the best team in basketball post All-Star break, and you take them into the playoffs, and unfortunately they lose in 7 to a very talented Denver team, which was one of the few teams that was able to take the the eventual NBA champions in the Oklahoma City Thunder to 7 games. So transitive property. Clippers almost beat the Nuggets. Nuggets almost beat the Thunder, right? You probably have a pretty good team, and maybe you just got a shitty draw in the playoffs, man. The West is competitive, and they were close. They were really, really close to potentially going on a run, but we'll never know. But where do we find the Clippers at nowadays? Well, they've had a damn near perfect offseason, in all honesty, except for some potential things that could go wrong. We're not sure where it's going to go, but we're going to talk about it in this video a little bit. So last year, Clippers were 50-32. Very, very good basketball team. Franchise status, obviously, this is a contending basketball team. If you're new to the series, basically, I've got 5 categories that you can fall into as a franchise. First, you got selling teams, so teams actively trying to blow up and kind of reset their group. Then, you have rebuilding teams. Teams that are kind of trying to find those base players to kind of start their franchise kind of over with. Then, growing teams. You've found those base level players, and you're kind of trying to grow up with them, supplement them, get them the right kind of vets to help them grow. pro. You have contending teams, teams that are actively like trying to win a championship. That is definitely the Clippers. And then you got the who the fuck knows category. There's always a couple of these teams. You never want to be in this category. These four at least kind of flow into each other, and there's kind of a direction with them. This one, like the name suggests, no, you don't know what the hell you're doing. So you'd much rather be in any of these four than that one. But clearly a contending basketball team here. A couple of goals that I have for the season. It's important to talk about these before we get into the rest of the video. Find balance in the rotations. There are a lot of good basketball players on this team, which is a great problem to have. It's also a very veteran group of basketball players. Apparently this is like the oldest NBA roster that's ever been assembled before. And if you guys have ever watched like some March Madness and stuff like that, sometimes a team of just like all vets is all you really need to go get it done, as long as you got like 1 to 2 guys that can go get you a bucket when you need it. Take a look at that old like Dallas Mavericks team that beat the Heat that one year in the finals. That's kind of what this is reminding me of a little bit. So I'm curious to see how they kind of balance rotations and like who's playing with who, like how many minutes are you really giving all of these guys in order to kind of adequately keep your team afloat at all different points of the game. It's going to be an interesting thing. Build an elite defense. There is no excuse for this team not to be like the best defensive team, in all honesty. They have so many good defensive players. So let's get creative with things, whether that's just having like extreme fundamentals, all switching defense, right? You're going to maybe play all-time great drop coverage or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but this team needs to be elite defensively if they're going to contend for a championship, because obviously older team, the odds of you being like the best offensive team maybe is a little bit low, so you need to build this elite defensive team, and you should be able to, given all the players that you have on there. And then I just have don't do anything drastic. Obviously, if situations change, which again we're going to talk about, then maybe stuff has to happen, but for the most part you should probably just try to roll with this team as much as you can, man, because it's hard to build a better roster than you've built right here. So I've got noted here then obvious stuff. Kawhi Leonard, right, and Steve Ballmer, apparently a little bit of an under-the-table dealing going on, allegedly. The whole situation is apparently there's like this organization that's supposed to plant trees or whatever. They're like a non-profit. Steve Ballmer is like funding this group or whatever, and Kawhi Leonard is sponsored by them and getting paid a bunch of money to be a sponsor, and he hasn't done anything for this company. This company's kind of gone belly up or whatever, and it's a little odd. It's a little odd, to say the least. A lot of people are starting to think, hey, maybe, just maybe, Steve Ballmer is using this as kind of a shell organization to pay his players under the table, which, if that happens, and if that's the truth with Kawhi Leonard, then you've got a big problem on your hands. You are probably getting this player suspended for a very, very long time, if that's the case. I don't know. I've had some people reach out to me and be like, hey, what happens with this? We don't really have a lot of precedents for it, except for, is it Joe Smith? Is that who it was for like the Timberwolves or whatever? I can't remember that motherfucker's name. I can picture him. But basically they told him to sign a contract and guaranteed that they'd give him another contract like the next year or something, kind of under the table. And that resulted in the Timberwolves losing like 5 first-round picks like very early on in their kind of stage as a franchise. So if that happens, obviously that changes everything, right? I don't think I need to explain that to you guys any further. If Kawhi Leonard's just all of a sudden kind of gone or whatever, then I don't know what to tell you. Then things are different. This is still a great basketball team, but you don't have your best player anymore. So that's a little bit iffy. I'm going to talk about this team as if Kawhi's here, because innocent until proven guilty, but you guys are smart enough to know that if he's gone, yes, that fucking changes things. So I don't want to see any comments like if Kawhi gets suspended like between when I'm recording this and when this video comes out, people being like, AVC, now I need a new one of these videos or whatever for you to talk about them. No, you understand. You understand what's going on. So, all right, with all that being said, those are the goals for the season. Keep these in mind as we go throughout the rest of the video, because it's going to be important. because we're going to be talking about them at other different little segments or whatever. But with all that being said, let's talk about their offseason because it was a big one. Alrighty, the offseason tab. If you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, or I guess more so if you just watched the season preview series last year, you know that we break the offseason down into kind of 3 separate parts. You've got drafted players, meaning guys that you've drafted this last year that are going to be on the full-time roster. Player departures, guys that were on the team at the end of last season that will not be on the team this season. You had to say goodbye to these guys. And then players brought in, fans, these are new faces that you're going to have to learn. These guys joined your team via either free agency or trade, and they're going to be on the full-time roster this year. Let's start off with drafted players. As always, I'm going to plug. For those of you that don't know, I run a basketball statistics and analytics company. One of the services that I do is teams can basically rent me out to be a scout for them, and I've done that professionally the past couple years. If you want my thoughts on some of the players in this class, feel free to go click this link right here, and you can see some of my thoughts on these guys. And one of the players drafted this year that I actually didn't cover, but is Yannick Conan Niederhauser out of Penn State. Big man. I thought this was a great draft pick for the Clippers. What do we know about Yannick? Probably a pretty undercovered guy going into this draft. He was more of an underrated guy, but very, very large body, big shot blocker, right? Supposed to be kind of dangerous around the rim, lob threat, stuff like that. There's a lot of points in his game where he plays some lazy basketball, if I'm being honest with you, and there's a lot of fundamentals that still need to be learned by this kid. But overall, you've got a big body that's a very good athlete and is prone to going up there and really rejecting some shots and getting up and getting the ball into the rim as needed. So that's an interesting talent as is. There's not always a lot of bigs out there to be had, and so especially this team that needed some bigs at the end of last season, they really struggled with center depth after Zubats, and so you went and kind of found one of those in Yannick, which I think is great. I think it's always good too for a veteran team to have a young guy, a rookie on the team, because it forces everyone else to kind of be a teacher. Everyone knows that this is the guy kind of trying to make the squad, right? Trying to make it in his career. And when you allow other people to be teachers, they end up usually becoming better like athletes or players themselves, right? So I'm glad they took Yannick. I thought that was an awesome selection. Next, we have his player departures. Unfortunately, Norman Powell will not be on this team next year. Like we talked about kind of at the beginning, Norman Powell was a borderline all-star level player last year, one of the most efficient offensive players in basketball. He's getting to the rack, he's hitting three-pointers, he's creating for himself and others, he's getting to the rim, all the things that you want Norman Powell to do. Is probably his best season as a pro, and you ended up trading him. But why did you trade him? That's the important thing, because when we got to the playoffs last year, in the playoffs, you tend to exaggerate certain things about your team. So like we all know James Harden has the ball a decent amount during the game. So do guys like Kawhi Leonard. When you get to the playoffs, you tend to give it to them even more and more and more, right? And all of a sudden Norman Powell doesn't really have a spot anymore. He became a little bit redundant to them in the playoffs and not nearly as effective, because it's like, okay, like what is he supposed to kind of do when these guys are kind of trying to cook and set up for other people, right? Because Norman Powell, a lot of his value is he has the basketball and is making moves with it. And so this team was like, hey, we have an opportunity to move on from that, and they ended up bringing in John Collins, which was actually a pretty good move in my mind. So unfortunately, Norman Powell's gone, but I think it was for a good reason, and he's off to Miami now. Amir Coffey, you didn't end up bringing Amir Coffey back. Really what Amir Coffey is out there to do is to be like a lengthy three-point shooter and kind of a pseudo ball handler at times for a team. He ended up getting picked up by Milwaukee on like an Exhibit 9 or 10 deal or something, so he's not officially on the roster yet, but I'd be surprised if he didn't find some sort of NBA home, because again, he is a solid basketball player. And so normally I'd be like, oh, that's a tough reserve to lose or whatever, but considering the players you brought in, not that butthurt about it. Drew Eubanks, this was your backup center for a decent chunk of last season after you got him in a trade. Drew Eubanks is good for kind of a lob threat, blocking a few shots, getting a couple rebounds. He's a serviceable kind of reserve big in the NBA. Probably not a guy you wanted to play significant minutes, but he was there for you. You let him walk in free agency, not a big deal. Ben Simmons, we're all familiar with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons at this point in his career, solid defensive player, above average defensive player. He's going to get some rebounds. He'll be one of the best passers out there some moments, and sometimes one of the worst passers. There's a lot of turnovers still, but also like he will drop some dimes. Otherwise, he's just doing handoffs, setting screens, and every once in a while kind of missing some layups. I don't think you probably care that much that he's not on the team anymore. You gave it a try, so There it is. We're going to speed through kind of these last couple guys here. Jordan Miller, this is one of those times where you gave the Summer League kind of standout a contract, and it hasn't really worked out for you all that well. He just hasn't really developed into anything, and that's why we always say, like, look, Summer League's not a huge correlation between things, and maybe it still will work out for Jordan Miller, but we haven't really seen anything up to this point that really gets us excited about his game. Patty Mills, at this point in his career, not much that he's doing. He's out there typically, or he's on a team at this point kind of just to be a vet at the end of the bench. It's important to have guys like that connect the coaching staff kind of to the roster, but this team is old as shit already. You don't need a guy like Patty Mills on the team anymore because his on-court contributions are just not there. And Patrick Baldwin Jr., a guy that's been trying to kind of find his way into the NBA. There's not really a specific part of the game that you get all that excited about. His minutes weren't anything too intense last year to even really analyze, so you let him go. So really, you lost Norman Powell. You brought in John Collins. It's not too bad. But who did you bring in, right? Who else did you bring in besides John Collins? One of them is Bradley Beal, a guy that's been getting shit on by people on the internet for the past couple years because he makes a ton of money and has honestly still been a pretty good basketball player in that time. He's just been playing next to some other good basketball players and he's been injured, right? Bradley Beal gets bought out by the Suns and now you have him on an incredible deal. You have a guy that can get you 20 points any night on extreme efficiency, that can play make for people and not turn the ball over very much defensively. Yeah, he's pretty meh at this point, definitely a below average defensive player, but like, these are the types of guys that can win you playoff games out of nowhere, man. This guy can, like, I'm saying he can get you 20 any night. This guy can get you 30 any night if you give him the opportunity to do so. There's a lot of other guys in this team, so I wouldn't expect that, but this is a pretty elite player to just be adding to your team for like $5 million, so pretty nuts. John Collins, we talked about him. That's who we haven't talked about him. I talked about how you traded Norman Powell for him. If you haven't been paying attention to the Utah Jazz the past couple seasons, which I don't necessarily blame you for, John Collins is a very good basketball player. Very good. This is not the same guy that was on the Atlanta Hawks. This guy has molded his game considerably. Yep, he's still a lob threat, great athlete that can really get his way to the rim, usually via off-ball situations, but still has that, but this guy's become a very good three-point shooter in his time, and he's been doing it pretty consistently for a while. He doesn't need the basketball to be successful. He's used to playing off of other people, which is great for you if you're the Clippers, right? Because you have a lot of guys that would like the basketball on this team, and so now you've got this guy that should, at the end of games, be a much better complement to you in the playoffs, right? This is a bigger body, a guy that can crash to the rim, right? That can be an above the rim threat, that can step out and hit a three, doesn't need the basketball. Like, this is a great starter addition to your team, and a guy that can get you like 16 to 18 points on any given night if you really let him. So elite player to add to the team. Chris Paul, he's back. He's back. What a fun time after spending last year with the Spurs, kind of just being that veteran player on the team to try to help a growing team. He's going for one more. He's going to give it one more go, most likely, to try to win a championship this year. This roster is loaded. Obviously, what he's still able to do is be a big-time playmaker, distribute the basketball. He'll still hit some three-pointers, hit some mean mid-rangers. He's not going to get to the rim really at this point at all. I feel like his attempts are pretty low just in general at getting to the rim at this point. He still doesn't really play off the basketball. That's not really something that he does, and it's never been something he's done throughout his career because he's the point guard, right? That's what he does. I'll be curious to see if he's able to increase like his numbers in that department at all this season. I think that could be very important for him because so I've got Clippers players up here. I'm pulling up Zubac just so I can get to Chris Paul easier here. So if we take a look at like Chris Paul shooting, look at this, like the percent assisted, like he creates all of his own looks, man. It is all, and that's just what it's been his entire career. He's gonna have to play without the basketball a little bit, man. You're playing with Kawhi, James Harden, Bradley Beal, guys like that, right? So, but we still want the ball in Chris Paul's hands sometimes to run some offense. So, great addition to the team. And then, wow, the fourth player you added to the team, another great one, Brook Lopez, a guy that's been a great starter for a while, as NBA champion. Brook Lopez at this point, Splash Mountain is what he's commonly referred to as for a reason. He's changed his game a lot over the years, mostly a pick and pop guy, elite drop coverage defensive player. Him and Giannis have been kind of manning that paint in Milwaukee for a couple of years now, so still a very, very good defensive player. Offensively, he's great around the rim. Obviously, big body. Doesn't get like a ton of rebounds for his size, but that's because the Bucks kind of ran a different system where they're not necessarily asking him to get a ton of rebounds either, so I wouldn't overanalyze that too much, but still a great rim defender and stuff like that. So wow, you've got a phenomenal backup center now to have out there behind Zubac. You do not miss much at all, and it gives you a spacing option, which is kind of cool as well. So overall, kind of taking a look at this offseason, I thought you drafted well. I thought the players that you lost, not a big deal, and the one that you traded that was a bigger deal for the team, I think you got an even better fit for the team going forward. You had guys like Beal, Chris Paul, Brook Lopez. I mean, this is this is an NBA starting five almost right here. This is great, and there's a pretty good chance that two of these guys are coming off the bench. So, yeah, pretty great offseason for the Clippers. Now, let's go talk about what the rest of their roster looks like. All right, roster breakdown tab. You guys have definitely seen this one if you've been on my channel for any amount of time. I really like this tab because it kind of gives us this kind of whole overview of kind of what a team's looking like right now. We've got the current roster breakdown with player options and salaries and stats with them. You got the team salary cap outlook. We'll go over some draft picks and assets they have, and then the whole depth chart or anything. I don't think I need to say anything about the depth chart right now. Typically, I do in these videos. I'm throwing you guys off a little bit. I know I repeat a lot of the same things on here, and I do it for a reason. But I think I've corrected the issue. So you know what? Here's the depth chart. There you go. Let's see what happens with that. I'm moving on. So the people that this is the first time watching it, they're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But one thing I am going to repeat still is here on the roster, AVC, what are these numbers right here? These are EPM numbers. They stand for estimated plus minus. Basically, this really advanced statistic that tells us how good somebody is at offense, defense, and overall as a basketball player. I then take those numbers and normalize them or index them so that you can get the 0 to 100 score telling you how good somebody is at something versus everyone else in the NBA. The lower the score, obviously the worse at something. If they're towards the top, it means they're the best at something in the NBA. And as always, it's my job to tell you guys, as the guy that owns the basketball statistics, like consulting company, don't look at any stat and just assume that that is everything. It requires like critical thinking to take a look at a stat and be like, okay, why is the stat that way? It never tells the complete story. There's so much context that stats can't grab still. So I can see someone here and be like, okay, why is Bradley Beal just a bad defensive player? It's like, well, potentially, but maybe there's other circumstances at play. Maybe the Phoenix Suns just weren't that good at defense in general last year. Maybe the scheme they had didn't make sense. Maybe you had bad teammates, right? So you should have good critical thinking when taking a look at all of this so that you're not just saying like, oh, this number is the case, there you go. And then it's just said and done. So just always kind of keep that in mind. But anyway, there's a lot of green on this page. There is a lot of good basketball happening here. Let's start off with Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, we already talked about the stuff at the beginning. If he's out, then he's out. The half a season that he did play last year was very good. I will say when I was watching him, he did just look a lot slower than I'm used to seeing Kawhi Leonard looking. But again, just coming back from injuries and stuff like that, not a big deal. Apparently, he's been doing a lot to stay in shape this offseason, which is great. And I think when I look at Kawhi Leonard at this point, I still see a great defensive player. I still see a guy that can go and just get you a bucket kind of whenever you need him to. Still one of the better players in the NBA, right? Had some big moments for you in the playoffs. I don't need to over-explain Kawhi Leonard. James Harden, at this point, still a big-time offensive player. Not nearly as efficient as maybe he once was, especially at the rim, right? Not quite beating guys off the dribble like maybe he once did, but still one of the best playmakers that we have in the NBA. And defensively, honestly, more than competent last year, which was very good to see because he had to do a lot for this team last year, and I feel like it was probably underappreciated. So James Harden, still awesome. I don't need to explain that. I already talked about John Collins a little bit. If we go over to Ivica Zubac, one of the most underrated players in basketball this last season. Defensively was definitely like a defensive player of the year candidate. If you would have told me that you think he is, I would have definitely heard you out on it because he was phenomenal for this group last year. Rebounding wise, awesome. Just being like an absolute anchor of a big man, just kind of really embodied the traditional big man role and excelled in every facet of it. So awesome to kind of see this guy really grow into the player that he is. He is now extremely underpaid for how good that he is. So hopefully we can see that again this season because he was awesome. Bogdan Bogdanovic, you got paid to take this guy from Atlanta, and what a turnaround he had. When we were watching Bogdanovic in Atlanta last year, we were like, whoa, all of a sudden this guy can't hoop like at all. And rationally, we didn't just look at numbers. We watched the film and we were saying on the channel, I feel like if you just put this guy in a different situation, it's probably going to be just fine for him. And like I said, he ended up getting traded to the Clippers. It was a really weird trade, in my opinion, but they got him, and this is a guy that at times is a 15, 16 point a game scorer in the NBA, and his stats shot up, man. He looked so much better as soon as he got on this team. Let's actually take a look at it. Where's Bogdanovic here? Let's take a look first at just like his EPM at that time. So yeah, this is him during his time with Atlanta. Yes, there's some injuries and everything, Boom, gets traded to the Clippers right here. All of a sudden, like, we're way up. Let's take a look at that 3-point percentage, because this was a down year for him, 3-point shooting wise, still above average, but it's pretty like blah, blah. Oh, God, it's not good. And all of a sudden, whoa, this guy's like balling. Again, he's like, oh, thank God. And yes, Atlanta was a weird situation this last year. So all of a sudden, he got to the Clippers. Things got much better. So you take a look at these numbers here, and all of a sudden things get a little better. Can I actually take a look at the defensive numbers as well? Yeah, okay. I kind of figured those were going to be like a little bit more consistent or whatever. But hey, nice playoff numbers there for you, Bogdanovich. So another just great bench player to have on this team. Really a guy that can go get you some buckets at any point, and he's going to be at least competent defensively. Derrick Jones Jr., another just great role player. Doesn't need the ball to be successful. We've all seen the alley-oops and the ability for him to just step out and hit some corner threes or whatever. Defensively, he's a big impact guy. We've seen him be on championship level teams with Dallas and stuff before, where he can be a high level contributor. So again, just another great player to have on this team. I've got no bad things to say about these guys. Talked about Brook Lopez already. Nick Batum, another one that they just gave another great contract to. Don't mind this number right here. Nick Batum was kind of awesome last year offensively. Absolute flamethrower for the team. No, he didn't contribute at like super high levels necessarily in other aspects of the game, but kept the ball moving. We all saw what he's able to do in the playoffs at times, and defensively, dude is still clamping people at his age. It was an incredible renaissance for Nick Batum this last season. Hopefully, we can see some of that again. All right, Chris Dunn. The number one thing you got to know with Chris Dunn right here. Potentially best defensive player in basketball last season. I would personally say, like, numbers aside, that Wemby is the most impactful defensive player. I might tell you that it's Chris Dunn after that. Like, Chris Dunn is just such a menace defensively, and he has been for a long time. And then he kind of found his way back into NBA rotations by being like a decent enough off-ball player and being able to hit an open three or whatever, right? But defensively, he's just such a menace that you have to have him out there in some capacity, and that's what we're going to expect out of him again this year. Already talked about Bradley Beal. Already talked about Yannick. Kobe Brown, younger guy in the team that you have just to kind of help keep the roster cheap, keep you under the aprons or whatever. There's no real part of his game that really excites me at this point. We talked about Chris Paul. Cam Christie, rookie last season. Again, this is why it's valuable for championship level teams to have second round picks, because you can get very cheap players to fill out the back end of your roster. Cam Christie, nothing that really excited me last year necessarily about him either. I didn't really understand him as a prospect either, personally, because I watched a lot of him in college, and I don't know, it just is what it is. But hey, he's on the team, cheap guy, we love to have it, right? There is still one open roster spot. They're probably going to keep that roster spot open to help them avoid the aprons and such. So just so you know, that is the case. But looking at like this depth chart, it's loaded. It's absolutely loaded, like everywhere. This is an awesome basketball team. Again, like, do what you want with the starting five, because I could see a bunch of different things. I could see you like starting James Harden. I could see you starting like Bradley, or putting James Harden at the point guard, putting Bradley Beal here. Like, Bogdanovich is like that good. Like, you can start Brook Lopez any other night. But let's just say you went with this starting five that I have here. You then have a bench of Chris Dunn, Bradley Beal, Bogdan you can throw into there, Derrick Jones Jr., Nick Batum, Brook Lopez. That is another NBA starting five right there. Like, that's a good basketball team in and of itself. This team is loaded. It's awesome. What an awesome constructed roster right here. And all while managing to fit under the aprons. Let's talk about the salary cap really quick. Just a quick overview if you don't understand how these things work. There's 4 lines to the NBA kind of cap structure. The first one, the cap line itself. Once you cross that, this number will say 0 here. So the Clippers have crossed that. Once you do that, you can only sign your own players to anything more than a minimum contract. There are exceptions to those rules, which the Clippers have taken advantage of, but it means you get capped at different places like the aprons. Then you have the luxury tax line. This is one of the scarier ones. Once you cross this, your team gets way more expensive to operate, right? Now, all of a sudden, every single year you spend in there consecutively, that interest kind of compounds and compounds and compounds until the point you get to be the Celtics and you pop, because you literally can't like function as a basketball team anymore. And again, this team is a luxury tax team. That's fine. They're trying to win a championship, and Steve Ballmer's made it very clear that he's willing to spend money, whether it's on potentially fake organizations or trying to help his team win. Hey man, I'd kill for an owner that's trying to do some illegal, potentially illegal shit. And again, allegedly, right? I have no clue if it's real or not, but I don't. I also just don't care that much either, if I'm being honest with you. But I wish my favorite team had an owner that was willing to do shit like that to try to be competitive. Man, I wish. But anyway, so that's the case with those. Then we have the first and second aprons here. If you're curious about all the little nuances of this, I have them up on the screen here, so you can just pause your video and take a look if you need to. But basically, all you need to know with the aprons is as you go deeper into them, the NBA starts to choke you out more and more, and you can't use these types of trades, you can't go for these exceptions, you can't sign players like this, you can't be in the buyout market for this, yada, yada, yada. It just becomes harder and harder to operate, until the point where the NBA basically says you're stuck. This is what you have. And yeah, it can be a very scary place. So you better be really confident with the team you have if you're in those aprons. The Clippers, again, have set themselves up to where they're in a place where they actually probably can't even go into the aprons because of the exceptions that they've used, but they've done a great job anyway. So very, very good position in getting that close to the aprons or whatever and putting together this stacked team. So very good job. Oh, and we have to talk about the draft picks. At one point, the Clippers were in a pretty tough position draft pick-wise. Now, considering how good they're at, I think they're fine. They've even got a couple like potential second-round picks for next year. This Grizzlies pick you might get to use. I guess we'll see. But again, you can be a contender next year as well and bring in another cheap guy to fill out the back end of your roster. It's great. Then your picks start to come back again. The Clippers are in a good spot. I think they're in a very healthy spot just as a organization in terms of what's on paper. Again, we'll see what happens with our favorite fun guy over here. But with all that being said, we can go on to the trade portion of this video. I talked about at the beginning, don't do anything drastic. And I wouldn't. I don't think that you should with this group. Like, there is not a single player on here that I necessarily want to trade. I do think we'll take a look at a couple very small ones just for the sake of the exercise, more so than anything else, but I don't think you need to. Obviously, if stuff happens, but let's move on to the trade portion of the video and talk about some moves. Alrighty, and that brings us back here to Fanspo. Fanspo, for those of you that don't know, basically this really, really cool trade website where you can do like mock trades and all that fun stuff, mock drafts. It's a great website, right? It's awesome. The problem with Fanspo is because it's free. My presumption is the people that run it don't necessarily take the time to, or it's not maybe worth their time to go in and update things all the time, and their trade machine is not up to date. It doesn't have like rookies and numbers and stuff in there, so it's not accurate as of this time. We're not trying to shame Fanspo. We love Fanspo. We're just like, hey, we really like your service and like what you do with your website. Can you please update your trade machine? It'd be great. You can really tell too, like who's using things and when right now and what's kind of going on in the NBA by seeing the most popular people that are being traded right now, which is very telling. It's very telling. But anyway, we're going to use Spot Track because they've got a beta version of a trade machine that is functional. It's not as good as Fanspo. It really isn't. But in all honesty, they keep it updated and you can do enough with it. So we'll make it happen. Really looking at this team, right? The only players maybe you don't need as much is like maybe you flip a Bogdanovich because his skill set is a little redundant on this group. I'd hesitate to do it if you don't have to, but maybe if you can find a cheaper option, there's something there. You could also find an even cheaper option than Kobe Brown, but I don't know who wants Kobe Brown necessarily. So let's just see if there's a cheaper option than Bogdan that makes sense for somebody. Like I think about a team like, I don't know, let's take a look for like desperate teams around the NBA who could use a Bogdanovich on this group. Like the Milwaukee Bucks are always going to be a team that kind of comes up with them. Toronto could use the shooting. They probably don't have necessarily the cap flexibility to make something happen, but we can talk about it. The Nets, you could always dump them there, but I don't really know the point in that. The Pistons, yeah, they'd probably like to have a guy like that. That could be kind of interesting. I don't know if you need to pay that much. It's 2 seasons, right? There's a team option on him, so that's not the biggest deal if you go and do that. Maybe Detroit wants to make like an all-in move. I could maybe see that. I don't know who you're getting from them. The Wizards, no. The Charlotte, the Pacers. It'd be kind of cool to see him on the Pacers, but no. The Magic, they could always use some shooting, but I don't think they've got necessarily the space for that. Otherwise, Pelicans, Kings, no. Nuggets, Lakers. Lakers are always down for a trade. At least ask their fans, and they are. Spurs, no. Warriors. Yeah, but the only one they can trade is Kuminga, really. So, I don't think you want those problems. The Suns, Depends on who you take back, because that's the thing, we can't take back more money, and the Suns need to drop money too, and we both can't drop money at the same time. The Rockets, Wolves, Blazers, meh. Let's fuck around with the Pistons one and see what I can come up with for that. We'll take a look at a Bucks one as well. That one's going to be a little bit harder to execute on, but let's see if there's something here. The Pistons are doing a good job of putting shooters on the basketball court, which I think is good. Who would we want back in a potential deal? Like maybe like a big man goes down or something. You want to take back like a B-ball Paul or something like that, but they probably don't mind having him as like a reserve either. I'm just kind of looking through. There's no one of like substantial enough money to make it happen. So maybe what we need to do more so is take a look at players like around that salary and see if there's something we can do. Like a Corey Kispert, no. Herb Jones, no. I'd love to end up with like a Josh Green or something if we needed it. 3-and-D to the max. That's what Josh Green does, and he never needs to have the basketball. Bogdanovich likes to have it a little bit, so maybe we could do something like with Charlotte there. So let's just experiment real quick. Let's just say like Bogdanovich maybe not having like the greatest year. He never gets to have the basketball at all. We don't necessarily need him, and we want to make some sort of deal or something. We can do something as simple as like this move right here. Okay, that's cool. And what's nice about this is the Hornets could get off of money like a little bit sooner. They can just decline the team option if they want to, or try to flip him again. Maybe he plays well or something like that. Maybe the Hornets are just trying to win more basketball games. Bogdanovich might be able to help you with that. But also, you could throw in a little second round pick or something like that. I don't know. You send that to Charlotte, you pay him to take him, and the Clippers get to save a little bit of money, get more of a traditional role player, if you would, that maybe fits the group a little bit more. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. Again, if you wanted to try to do a Kobe Brown trade, you go all the way down here. Is there someone that really wouldn't mind taking a Kobe Brown and maybe you get somebody a little bit cheaper or something like a Jordan Goodwin? No. Keon Ellis would be super cool on this team, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Chris Boucher, Marvin Bagley wouldn't be a bad guy to have on this team if you need it, because like size wise, you got 3 big centers. Yeah, no, you got plenty of size on this team, so I'm not tripping about that either. Again, that's what I'm saying. You don't need to do much with this group. You really don't need to do much with this group. Aaron Holiday just became a lot more valuable to the Rockets, so shout out him at the time of recording this. The Fred VanVleet trade injury just happened yesterday, so it'll be interesting to kind of see what they do with that. All the Reed Shepherd people are coming back out of the woodworks again, and so I hope Reed Shepherd can show something off. But no, not really seeing anything too crazy here. Andre Jackson Jr. would be kind of cool, but again, I don't know why the Bucks would want Kobe Brown over him. So I don't think you need to do much. I like the trade that we did here. I don't think it's too complicated, but man, I don't want to waste your time. The Clippers got a good roster. So obviously if a Kawhi Leonard thing needs to happen, we'll probably do its own video and figure out where he can go, but that's what I got for trades. Let's talk about the rotation. Alrighty, rotation, question mark. I always put the question mark here because, look, I'm not in the training camps. I'm not in the practices. I don't know. This is just me building a rotation based off the basketball I saw last season. So don't overthink it too much. But also, I do want your guys' opinions on this one a little bit more because I can see a lot of different things making sense. And if you want to tell me there's only one thing that makes sense, then you're a moron. But there's a lot of different things that you can do with this group. Obviously, these right here are averages that I anticipate, and these EPM numbers here are just the numbers here, but we're weighting them by how many minutes are being played at this point. So I went with the starting 5 of, I don't think you don't start Chris Paul. I think you go with Paul, Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Collins, and Zubac. Well, obviously these 4 are like the constants, right? You're starting these 4 regardless. It's more so just a question of, are you starting Chris Paul or Bradley Beal, or maybe even throw Chris Dunn out there? Like I could realistically see that, just to add like another defender that doesn't necessarily need the basketball out there with some of these other guys. I could see that, and then you bring Paul and Beal off the bench, but I think you start Chris Paul just because he's Chris Paul, more so than anything, and I still want him playing a solid amount of minutes, don't get me wrong. Him and Beal are kind of splitting time here. And then you got your kind of super bench here, like we said, of Dunn. Brook Lopez is out there just whenever Zubac isn't. That is a phenomenal backup center to have. Derek Jones Jr. and Bogdanovich. If you want to throw Batum in instead of Bogdanovich or Derek Jones, I could totally see it. Maybe we'll find some opportunities to get Yannick out on the court every once in a while, but wow, what great vets does he have this year between Lopez and Zubac, man. For a kid that kind of needs to grow up probably a little bit for his basketball game, it's a phenomenal situation for him. So that's my idea for the rotations. If I go over to the lineup section here, this is where I freeball things a little bit more, and I try to come up with some lineups I want to see used at different points in the game this year. The first one, I had to do it the 100% bench. Let's just do it. Let's just do a full bench squad. And that doesn't happen much in the NBA, but this team's so good, I kind of want to see it. Like, because you got the scorer in Bradley Beal out there. Bogdanovich can go get you some buckets. You got a ton of defense and a ton of spacing. I like it. I really want to see it happen. Just do it. Fuck it. Who cares? Ultra defense, we talked about. You got to build a strong defender at some point. And this is a team that's probably going to want to play a slower pace. If you get to any little lead, 8-9 points, let's start shrinking the amount of possessions we're getting. Let's go to ultra defense at times. So I got Chris Dunn, and look at this number, 93 EPM on the defensive end right here. Chris Dunn, Kawhi Leonard. I got Derek Jones out there as well. I've found Nick Batum out of the reserves. I'm throwing him in with Zubats. Oh my goodness, what a slow ass basketball team right here that could still shoot from the outside, be a menace to have to guard like on the glass. I think it's a cool team. And then I've got the first sub right here. I think the first sub for this team is really critical. Like the first time out, I'm taking like 3 guys off the court. I'm taking Chris Paul off the court here. You've seen I've taken James Harden off the court as well, and I've taken Zubats off the court, and we've thrown Chris Dunn, Bradley Beal, and Brook Lopez out there. We're keeping John Collins and Kawhi Leonard, and like, look at how strong this group is still. I can't get over how well this roster is created. It's a lot easier to make these lineups when everybody on the team's kind of good. So very, very cool. I think this like first sub here, like if you get a little lead, you could build upon it with this one and start to slow the pace down, and then you work your way into this group a little bit more. That's just, I think, a cool thing that you could kind of do with this team. But anyway, those are just my ideas. Let me know your thoughts for lineups and stuff down below. Let's move on to the standings prediction part of the video. This video is going a lot faster than the other ones. This is great. Standings predictions. You guys know how this works. I'm going to click this button right here, and the Clippers are going to appear somewhere in the West, wherever I think they're going to fall. There is still one play-in spot available here, so they could fall into there. Otherwise, they could be a playoff, just a straight up playoff team. The West is super, super competitive. So do I have them like just below the Thunder? I've been talking about this roster the whole time or whatever. Hard to say. But anyway, drum roll, please. Ooh, where are the Clippers gonna go? Ooh, is that money illegal? Ooh, I've got the Clippers as the 4 seed right here. And here's the thing. I do think this roster is amazing. I think they can make a finals push, no question about it. I do think it's going to take a little bit of time for this team just to get used to itself and all the Kawhi stuff. Like if that happens, and I don't know, you just assume Kawhi's going to get hurt at a couple points. You're in a very tough Western Conference. You can lose some games at any given point here. So I've got the Clippers as 4. I think they can easily win not easily, no one easily wins a championship, but this team very much could win a championship this year. I think they're that good, and that should tell you about, like, honestly, these couple of teams. Hell, like, I could realistically see so many Western Conference teams winning the finals. That's just how good the West is and how good some of these basketball teams are made. But this is where I turn it back to you guys. What do you think? Leave me a comment down below of where you think the Clippers are going to finish. I'm sure I've already pinned a comment for you to respond to down there. But with all that being said, let's move on to the comment of the video. Alrighty, y'all. Comment of the video is coming from our Detroit Pistons season preview here. We got the Detroit Bad Boys on this one. We got the black leather jackets with the Pistons like cool logo on there. Had some fun with that thumbnail. I actually haven't responded to a lot of these yet, so I have to get back to this so that I can keep saying in my videos, I've responded to every single comment to my YouTube channel. God, I'm such a fucking sellout at times. But anyways, you gotta do what you gotta do on the YouTube channel. Where was the one that I was talking about? Oh yeah, it comes from Liam here. Liam is a frequent commenter on the channel. Honestly, if you are in these comment sections here, you usually are. Only the basketball psychos are here at this point. But Liam said, what you said about Asar adding to spacing with cutting and setting off-ball screens reminds me of Utah and Walker Kessler setting off-ball screens on the weak side. Yeah, no, that's a great way to get like a lot of open looks and stuff, despite someone not being a great like shooter. It creates a lot of motion that teams need to kind of collapse in on, and it creates spacing. So you got it. Also, it's a very European offensive mindset. It is, man. Spacing doesn't just mean you have a good shooter, put him on basketball court. There's more that you have to do with it, and so it's a very interesting concept to talk about. We've also got some Bobby Clintman truthers in here. I love it. I think that's awesome. Some people talking about the Warriors at this point, how they're not doing anything. I told Warriors fans not to worry for most of this season, and I'm not saying you need to worry right now. I don't think that you need to do that, but it's not in a good spot right now. The Kuminga stuff, not good. And then off topic, but how will Fred VanVleet's injury impact the Rockets? What do you want me to say about this? They don't have Fred VanVleet anymore. He was going to be their starting point guard this season when they don't have a lot of other point guard depth on this team. So Amen Thompson's going to have to do more. There you go. I'm fine with Amen Thompson being the starting point guard. That doesn't bother me too much, but you'd rather have Fred VanVleet than not have Fred VanVleet. So there you go. That's my thoughts. Thanks for all the great basketball conversations, y'all. If you want to have more of them, go join the Discord down in the description below. Use that link right there. It's also how you get access to this cool spreadsheet. Again, just go over to the announcements channel and download it. I'm updating it all the time, so do with it as you will. Have fun with it. But as always, I appreciate you guys. Like, share the video, send the video to your Nana. I promise you, I'll go talk to her about it later, though, if you don't. But anyway, I appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much.